Hello friends, Satyendra here, and in this video you will learn sketching in depth in Creo Parametric. So let's get started. And for this I have totally 9 sections here. These 3 are the easiest one and these 3 are the complex one. Then these 3 lies in between these two. So I'll create all the 9 sections one by one to explain the procedure. So watch till the end, and parallelly you also practice all the sections one by one as per the video. So let's start with the first section, which is this one. And for this, first you go to new. Now here you can use sketch to practice all this sketch. So you get all the sketching tools here similar to the part. But the same thing you can also do inside the part. So here you can use sketch to create all the sections. So go inside the sketch and select a sketching plane. So I'll select this front plane and I'll say sketch. Normal. Switch off all the datums. Now before creating the sketch, let's talk about all the sketching tool first. So whenever we create a sketch, let's say I'm creating a rectangle. Just like this, we see 3 things here. First thing is sketch entities. So these are the sketch entities. Then the second thing is sketch constraint. So these are the sketch constraint. Then the third thing is the dimension. So these are the dimension. So whenever we create a sketch, first thing is we need to place the sketch entities just like this. Then the second thing is we need to take care of the constraint before creating the dimension. So I'll just hide these dimensions. Now let's say this line and this line are equal. So I'll go for equal constraint first. I will make these two lines equal before dimensioning. Let's say this line and this line is also equal. So once again I'll go to the equal. I'll make this line equal to this line. Then I will go for dimensioning. So these two are the weak dimension. We need to have all strong dimensions here. So I'll go to the dimension. I'll select this line and simply place the dimension. Now later on I can modify it. So this is my strong dimension and this is the weak dimension. You can simply click a weak dimension and make it strong. Later on you can just modify it. So the first thing is place all the sketch entities. Second thing is play with your constraint, and then at last you create the dimension. Now to create the sketch entities, you have this sketching group. So here you have 2 types of line chain, line tangent. Then you have rectangle, corner rectangle, slanted rectangle, center rectangle and parallelogram. Similarly, you have variety of circles, arc, ellipse, spline, fillet, chamfer, offset, thicken, variety of items. Then you have palette where you have lot of ready-made shapes. Then the second thing is constraint, and for that you have this group where you have 9 different constraints. And then the third thing, which is dimension. For that you have this group. Other than this, you have one more group which is editing. So sometime you need to modify your sketch. In that case, this group helps. Sometime you need to trim the line just like this. Sometime you need to divide the line segment just like this. So this group helps to modify the sketch. Then one more group we have, which is inspect. So here we have these 3 tools which is very helpful to inspect the sketch. So this is shade closed loops. So this is helpful to identify whether the complete loop is closed or not. So if it is shaded, that means it is completely closed. Let's say I have a sketch like this. So this is open. So in that case, it will highlight that this is not closed, and this option will highlight the open points, and this is for overlapping geometry. So let's say I have a overlap geometry like this, then this highlights, so you can easily identify and delete it. So these are the sketching tools. So you will see the function of all these tools while creating the sketch. Now one more thing we notice here is when we create a sketch, we get lot of sketch constraint and sketch dimensions. So let's talk about this, and for that I'll create one more sketch. I'll just create a reference. So I'll create the sketch using line. So whenever you create a sketch, sometimes you get some unnecessary constraint, like this equal constraint I am getting here. So to avoid it, you can either move your cursor little away from that, or sometime when the sketch is so complex that you cannot move your cursor here and there, in that case you can use the right click functionality. So one right click will lock the constraint and the second right click will cancel the constraint. Now you can place the line. Right click, place the line. Right click. And you can complete the sketch. Now once you complete the sketch, you can still delete some unwanted constraint. Now the dimension. So when you create the sketch, you get lot of weak dimensions. So this light blue colored dimension, these are the weak dimensions. So we have three type of dimensions in Creo Parametric: the weak dimension, then the strong dimension, and then the lock dimension. So the strong dimensions are dark blue colored and the lock dimensions are dark brown color. So these are the three different dimensions. Now the weak dimensions are just a reference dimension. So we should avoid all the weak dimensions in our sketch. So till you have these weak dimensions, that shows that still you are missing some dimensions to fix the sketch. Now these dimensions can be fixed using constraint or using individual dimensions. So once you modify a weak dimension, that becomes strong dimension. So this sketch is still having one weak dimension. That means still one dimension is missing. So if I make this line and this line equal, that dimension gone. So your sketch should not have any of the weak dimension. You should only have strong dimensions and lock dimensions if necessary. Now what is the difference between lock dimensions and strong dimension? So the difference is when you drag your sketch, lock dimensions will not allow to drag the sketch. Now in this direction you can drag the sketch. Now let's make this dimension as strong dimension and this dimension as lock dimension. So now you can drag this sketch this side, but you cannot drag this sketch this side. So if your requirement is such where you don't want to move your sketch while editing the dimension, then in that case you can lock the dimension. So this was the sketch entity, sketch constraint and sketch dimension. Now let's create the sketch. So whenever we create a sketch, we mainly follow two techniques inside the Creo Parametric. So I'll explain both the technique one by one. So let's start with the first technique. So when you are inside the sketch, first you place a center line if your sketch is symmetry. So I can see here that this sketch is symmetry from this center position. Now in the first technique, first you create the base entity. So I'll go for line and I'll place a symmetric line, just like this. Now once you create the first entity, you just modify this entity as per the given dimension. Once this is done, you can scroll it to fit the screen. Now the next task is add the rough sketch as per the given sketch. So don't worry about further dimension. Try to avoid the equal constraint. Now select all these entities and go for mirror. Select the center reference. Now once this is done, create all the required dimensions and parallelly you can modify it. Now since this point and this point are symmetry, you don't need this dimension. Now this sketch is done. Now just say OK. Now press Ctrl D for default orientation. So your first sketch is done. Now I'll create the second sketch. Now the second sketch is this one. So let's create it. And to create the second sketch, I will first hide the first sketch. Now I'll simply go for sketch. Again the front atom plane. Sketch. Normal. Now this sketch is not symmetry from anywhere. So for this, I'll simply go for line. I'll just create the first entity. I will modify it. This is 60. Then I will scroll down and fit it. Then I'll create the rough sketch. I am following the first technique. So I've just added the rough sketch. Now the dimension. So this is 90. This is 20. This is also 20. Then this is 30. And this is also 30. And the sketch is done. I'll just say OK. Ctrl D. And your second sketch is also done. Now just hide the second sketch. And then I will go for the third sketch. So the third sketch is this one. And for this, once again go to the sketch. Onto the front atom plane. Sketch. Normal. Now again this time you see a symmetry line here. So this portion is similar to this. So as per the first technique, first you place a center line somewhere here. Then create the first entity just like this. First you modify it and then you create the rough sketch. So start from here, go like this, avoid equal constraint, then go like this and like this. Then you simply go for mirror and mirror with this reference. Now create all the dimensions one by one as per the given drawing. And your sketch is done. Now say OK. Ctrl D. So this was the third sketch. Once again hide it. And now I'll go for the fourth sketch, which is this one. So again go for the sketch. Front atom plane. Sketch. Normal. Now again I will use the first technique, and if you see this drawing, this is also symmetry from this position. So first you place a center line just like this. Then first entity, a symmetry line like this. Immediately modify this. This is 120. Now just draw the rough sketch. Start from here, go up, then this side, again up, this side and this side. Mirror this entity using this reference. Now the dimension. This is 20. This is 45. This is 30. This is 5. And this angle is 90 degree. And your sketch is done. Say OK. Ctrl D. So the fourth sketch is done. I will just hide it. And then I will go for the fifth sketch, which is this one. Once again go to the sketch. Select the front datum plane. Sketch. Normal. Now if you see this sketch, this is symmetry from this position and this position both. So place two center lines. One is here and another one is here. Now draw a circle. Just like this. Modify the dimension. So this is dia 50. Then draw one more circle. Just like this. This is dia 90. Now draw the line starting from here, come down and place like this. Mirror it with this reference. Now the same entities, once again mirror it with this reference. Similarly, create a line, avoid equal constraint, and then go for mirror with this reference. One more time, select these entities, go for mirror, select this reference. Now you go for delete segment and delete these unwanted segment. Now modify the dimension. So this is 12 and from here till here this is 65. Similarly, this is 12 and from here till here this is 65. And the sketch is done. Now just say OK. Ctrl D. So the fifth sketch is also done. Now the sixth sketch, which is this one. So this all I am creating using first technique. So once again go to sketch, select a datum plane, sketch, normal. Now again this section is symmetry from this position and this position. So place the center line first, just like this and like this. Now the next thing is, first you place the first entity. So I will place a circle here. This circle is dia 20. So I will modify it. Now once this is done, I will go for a rectangle and I will create a symmetry rectangle. Now I will go for the round and I will select all these corners one by one. Press middle mouse button to come out from the command and just right click and make it equal. Now all rounds are equal. Now the next thing is go to symmetry and make this point and this point symmetry with this, and then this point and this point symmetry with this. Now the dimension. So this dimension is 75 and this dimension is 80. Now the next thing is these slots, and for this go to palette, shapes, rack track, place here, close it, and then drag it and position it somewhere here onto this reference. Make it a round up scale. I'll make it 10 and say OK. Now select these entities just like this and go for mirror using this reference. Now create all the required dimension. So from here till here, this is 25, and now you cannot place these dimension because this feature is symmetry with this. So by this dimension you can control both of that. Now delete this dimension because this is not required. For the time being, you can hide this constraint using this option. Now I'll go for dimension. From here till here, this is 44. Then this radius is radius 6. So I need to delete this dimension first. So you can select from here and say delete. And this you can make it 6. Now this radius is radius 15 and your sketch is done. Now switch on all the constraints and your sketch is done. Now say OK and Ctrl D. So the 6th sketch is also done. I'll just hide it to create the next sketch. And the next sketch is this one. And for this, once again go to the sketch, onto the front datum plane, sketch, normal. Now if you see this sketch is also symmetry from this position. So for this, first you place a center line, just like this. Now this sketch I am creating using the second technique. So for the second technique, just create the rough sketch. So I'll start like this. I'll go up, then this side, then like this. Hold shift and middle mouse button to drag it wherever you want. Then I'll place a circle, just like this. One more circle. Then once again line. I start from here, hold shift and middle mouse button. I'll go like this, then this side, and then this side. Then I'll go for delete segment and I'll delete these segments. Then I'll select all these segments and I'll go for mirror with this reference. Now in the second technique, create all the required dimension without modifying it. So I'll create this dimension, don't modify it. Then create this dimension, then this dimension, this one, this one, this one. Then for the radius dimension, single click and place the dimension, and for the diameter dimension, double click and place the dimension. Now still you have one dimension here, which is weak dimension. So if the dimension shows 0, 0, that means use this constraint and place this point to this reference. Then one more weak dimension we have. Just modify these dimensions little bit to understand the problem. So I'll just make it 6. So now you can see here that this center line is moving from this reference. Just Ctrl Z, go for the same constraint, select the center line, move your cursor this side, once again move here, right click and select the reference. So that dimension gone. Now once you have placed all the required dimension, then go for modify and start selecting these dimensions one by one. Now expand it, remove regenerate, and then modify all the dimensions from here. So this is 56, this is 6, this is 38, then 80, then 15, then 40, then 60, then 30, then 45. Now I say OK, and your sketch is done. Now just say OK. Control D. So your 7th sketch is also done. Now the next sketch, and for this first I'll hide this sketch. Now the next sketch, which is this one, and for this go to the sketch, front datum plane, sketch, normal. Now once again I'll use the second technique to create this sketch. Now if you see this sketch, this portion is symmetry with this position. So I'll first place a center line somewhere here. Then I will create the rough sketch. So I'll draw a circle first, somewhere here, just like this. Then I'll use line to draw the line segment. These segments I will mirror it with this reference. Then I'll go for delete segment, and I'll delete this segment, this segment, these segments, and these segments. One more circle, this side and this side. Then the line from here till here. Then I'll place one more center line somewhere here, and I will mirror this line with this reference. So when you mirror an entity, automatically you get symmetry constant. Now once again I'll go for delete segment. I'll delete these segments and these segments. Now the rough sketch is done. Now create all the dimensions without modifying it. So go to the dimension. Now start creating all the dimensions. Now this dimension will not be allowed because it is symmetry. So create all the dimensions one by one, and then go for modify and start selecting all these dimensions one by one. Don't miss any dimension, otherwise your sketch will fail. Uncheck regenerate. Now modify these dimensions from here. So this is 100, this is 50, this is 25, this is 10, then this is 6, this is 25, this is 75, this is radius 50, and this is dia 64. Now say OK, and your sketch is done. Now just say OK. Control D. So this sketch is also done. Now I'll hide this sketch for the next sketch, and the next sketch is this one. And for this, go to the sketch, again front datum plane, sketch, normal. Now once again I'll place a center line first, somewhere here, then one more center line like this and like this. Make it 45 and this also 45. Now I'll start with a circle like this, then this. One more circle from here, this side, this side, this side. Go for delete segment, delete these segments. Now go for arc, select this point and this point like this point, like this. Then once again go to the arc, this time you go with center and end, select this point, this one, like this, then this point, this one, like this. Then create a circle somewhere here randomly. Go for tangent constraint, make this circle tangent with this circle and then this circle tangent with this circle. Go for delete segment, remove unwanted segments. Now select this entity, go for mirror and select this reference. Once again go for delete segment, remove this segment and this segment. Hold shift and middle mouse button to drag it wherever you want. Now add the line segment from here, this side and this side. Go for mirror with this reference. Then go for delete segment and delete this segment, this segment, this segment, this. Zoom this area, delete this segment and delete this segment. Now if you go for inspect, you can clearly see here there is a problem somewhere here and that is why this portion is not shaded. So to solve it, go to corner, select this circle and this circle. So this option, join this segment. Now the rough sketch is done. Now create all the dimensions without modifying. So go to the dimension, place this dimension, then this dimension, then this dimension, then this one, then this, then this, then you have one more dimension for this center line, radius 45. So for this, go to the center arc, select construction mode, select the position and then you draw this arc just like this. Now you create a dimension for this. So you have added all the required dimension. Now you go for modify and select these dimensions one by one. Don't miss any dimension, otherwise your sketch will fail. You can even select the correct dimension. Before modifying, uncheck regenerate and start modifying from here. So this is 15, this is 40, this is 20, this is 16, this is 15, then this is 10, this is 20, this is 45. This is 45 and that is 45. Now you say OK. And your sketch is done. you don't have any weak dimension left. That means sketch is perfect. Now say OK. Ctrl D. And we finished all 9 sketches successfully. So this is how we create sketches in Creo Parametric, and I hope this video will be helpful. Now you can like this video if you find this video helpful, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you.